الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله
Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon everyone who's watching. My name is Kenny Bowman. This is Consider This TV, where truth is made clear from falsehood. And I do bear witness there's no God other than Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his final servant and the seal of all prophets. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Okay, so listen, we got two gentlemen backstage, two fine gentlemen backstage who are coming on here shortly to debate the topic, is the Quran a scientific miracle? And so I'll bring them on shortly. Let me make a couple of quick announcements before I do. So tomorrow we're going to have a segment titled Christianity versus Islam, Religion versus the Way of Life, with special guest Abi Yazid. That's going to be tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That'll be 7 p.m. Excuse me, let me back up. That's going to be actually 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so be sure to tune into that, inshallah, God willing. And also, this Friday, I will be having a discussion with a gentleman by the name of Alex Karimli, and he is a Christian. We're going to be discussing stories of the prophets, the Tanakh versus the Quran, and that will be Friday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So once again, that is on Friday. And of course, we got the Godman segment that we do that will be coming up. And so be on the lookout for all of those. So let me go ahead and bring on the two debaters today. And alhamdulillah, if you're watching, be sure to hit subscribe, like, and share the link with other people, inshallah, God willing. Okay, so let me bring on the two debaters. So, all right, so welcome to the panel, gentlemen. We have TJump and Brother Nadir Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the panel, both of you. Let me make sure both of you are off of mute there. There you go. There you go. Okay, so let me just give a brief introduction to both of the gentlemen and lay out the format for the debate. TJump is an atheist. He's interested in philosophy and discussing pseudoscience with people, and engages in a lot of debates, matter of fact. And he has a YouTube channel by the name of TJump. And so if you'd like to check him out, he's got a lot of debates there. Very interesting. I've checked some of those debates out myself. So that is TJump, and he is once again the founder of that channel. So Tom, welcome to the show. And alhamdulillah.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And also Brother Nadir Ahmed. He's a longtime Muslim apologist. He's a debater. He's been around for a number of years, and he is specializing on the topic of the scientific aspect of the Quran, alhamdulillah. So, brother, once again, welcome to the panel. And I thank both of you gentlemen for choosing this show as your platform for this discussion. And so in regards to the debate itself, for the format of the debate, the agreement is 10-minute openings. So it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a lot of back and forth, but 10-minute opening statements by each debater. And Brother Nadir is going to go first on that. And then it's going to be a 2-minute back and forth the whole time. And so I do have a timer here. I do want to encourage both of you to avoid any ad hominem and any disrespectful comments whatsoever. We don't want any of that. Shucks. And so let's just be gentlemen and just engage in peaceful dialogue. and not insult one another. And also, people in the chat, make sure you be respectful in the chat if you could. Thank you to the moderators. Assalamu alaikum to the moderators. Please keep track of any rude and offensive comments in the chat, and let's eliminate that if you see that there. So, with that being said, if either of you like to make just a general opening statement before we actually get started, or if you want to wait till your allotted time, that's fine. But let me just open it up, let you tell each other hello or whatever you want to do at this point, if you'd like.
Yeah. I mean, TJ has had some discussions. So I think he's pretty familiar with how this is going to go down.
Okay. Tom, you have any just opening comments you want to make before we get started?
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the invite. Let's have an interesting conversation.
Okay, brother. Thank you. I appreciate that. And once again, welcome. And okay, so brother Nadir, if you're ready,
yep.
Let me set the time. You're gonna have 10 minutes, and you should be able to hear the timer. Do you want me to give you any indication at 5 minutes or 1 minute, or do you have it? You want to just handle
30
the time?
30 seconds is good.
30 seconds, okay.
Yeah.
If that's, I'll just say 30 seconds, and we'll just leave it at that. Okay. Okay. So whenever you're ready, just let me know when you're ready to start your time. If you have an opening, just comment you want to make. That's fine. But let me know when you actually want to start your opening statement itself.
All right, Bismillah. Okay, so I'm ready to start right now, and I'd like to thank Tom for participating in this discussion, this debate. And so today I'm going to be presenting irrefutable evidence, scientific evidence from the text of the Quran, which proves that it is indeed a scientific miracle. And now there are statements in the Quran which agree with science, which people could not have known 1,400 years ago, yet they were mentioned in the Quran. I'm going to share my desktop over here real quick over here, show you my little presentation here. Now, I know there's been a lot of confusion about this. People who I actually respect a lot, people like Brother Hamza Zortes and others and them who have expressed some concerns about this. And I hope tonight's discussion will satisfy all those doubts. So, like I said, so before I begin, I want to set the record straight on some of this confusion. And so I want to introduce two important concepts. Can you guys see my desktop here?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one is in an acronym called COPS, C-O-P-S, and I'll explain what that means. You see, there are many verses in the Quran in which agree with scientific fact, which has only been recently discovered. But that is not what makes the Quran a scientific miracle it by itself. There are many ancient books which do agree with scientific fact. Okay, and it all has a perfectly natural explanation. So what do you do when you see a verse, whether it's in the Bible or the Quran or whatever the book is? What do you do when you see this type of agreement with science? You call the cops. Okay, this is an acronym. You see, just before, first of all, let me explain. So long as they're not retrofitting the verse or making the verse fit with science and injecting science into there, so long as that's not the case. The C stands for a coincidence. Look, it could have been a purely accidental discovery, stroke of luck, a poetic expression. He was just trying to be poetic, a metaphorical expression which accidentally agreed with science. It was not the author's intent to agree with science. This is a coincidence. So by definition, what a coincidence is some kind of occurrence or some kind of something which happens, an event which was not planned or expected. It was unexpected. So that might be the reason why. So you just don't jump to the conclusion, look, it only could have been God, which could have been the author of that. There's many explanations. Or maybe let's go for the O. The O stands for it could have been something obvious. Like if you jump in the ocean, you might drown, or there's dangerous animals in the ocean. Well, that's pretty obvious. Okay. Or let's go with the P now. The P stands for plagiarism. Maybe the author of that book borrowed from an existing source, an unknown source, or some secret source even, and he just copied from there and he presented it into the Quran or whatever that book is. Or maybe he was a scientist. Maybe he's observing nature and he's doing scientific experiments, and therefore he wrote those scientific experiments into the Quran or whatever his conclusions were. So there's many examples of that, okay, of what cops are. So when you see an agreement with science, you always call the cops. Now, the second important point I want to bring up is the issue of multiple interpretations. verses can have many good, perfectly good interpretations. For example, there was this TV show called In Living Color back in the 90s, really cool show. So this one guy, he used to dress up like kind of in a feminine way, the comedian, and he'd go up to people and says, "Excuse me, but are you bi?" And people were like, "Whoa, wait a sec, what are you talking about?" Bilingual. And that was really funny because what he pointed out over here is a very important principle in logic and religion. Was actually what he displayed there. See, that one word, "Are you bi?" has two very good equally valid interpretations. Are you bilingual or are you bisexual? So that was a very good example. So that's just an example of how I'm showing you things can have more than one interpretation. You shouldn't and that's what Dr. Carl Sagan said, you shouldn't run with the interpretation that suits your agenda, okay? And sometimes there's just not enough information in the text which positively proves that the Quran is referring to that scientific fact. So we can expect a verse to have multiple valid interpretations, but what is not expected is for one of those verses to agree with a scientific fact. That's unusual. It can happen, and when you see that happening, you call the cops. Okay, we're not going to jump to the conclusion that the book is a scientific miracle just because you see one of the multiple interpretations, valid interpretations, is agreeing with science. Okay, agreement with science is a rare and occurrence, which is something which is strange, and we can call it an unusual phenomenon. So, having said all of that, here is what makes the Quran a scientific miracle. What makes the Quran a scientific miracle is not that you have one or two verses which agree with science, okay? Because you can call the cops and that can all be easily explained. It was a coincidence. It was obvious. It was plagiarism. It was maybe the author was a scientist. You could explain it away. But what if you see the same phenomenon occurring over and over and over again? The cops cannot explain that, okay? It is human, and this is also a very important point. So let's go back to cops here, and I'll show you how the cops cannot explain that. You see, coincidence is something which is unexpected. It could be just a stroke of luck, but it is unexpected. But if you just saw the agreement with science happening again and again and again, well, then that cannot be a coincidence. Something else is at play here. And of course, we're going to see, are these obvious things which you could just kind of infer by looking at it, you know? And also in coincidence, there's also an issue of luck. So maybe you're just guessing at it. Maybe you're just trying to say, well, and you're just guessing. But when you see it occurring over and over again, then this cannot explain it. That leaves one sensible explanation, and that there is a supernatural source who is the author of all the scientific information which you see in the Quran. And that's going to be demonstrated tonight. So I also want to point out that it is humanly possible, which does not require a God, to make all of the Quranic scientific statements in the Quran. Can a human being do it? Well, sure, it's possible. But what is not possible is for one man to do all of these, is to continuously make scientifically correct statements over and over again. That requires a supernatural source. Okay, so here's what we know about the Quran. And we'll get to those cartoons in just a second here. I mean, later on in our discussion. That's usually the most favorite part. So we know that the author of the Quran, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and from an atheist point of view, he was a man who sat down to write a book, and he made decisions in there. I'm going to talk about 4 facts about bees, and I'm going to answer the question about alcohol, because that is there's been a lot of problems with that as well. And I'm going to tell you 1 fact about the brain, and I'm going to write 2 facts about the ants. And every time he's doing this, he's going to be rolling the dice. And I'm going to correct 3 scientific errors in the Bible. Oops, in the Bible. I'm going to write that down. Sorry about that. In the Bible. And we'll go over that. And this stuff has to be all right. I can't, there's no room for me to get this wrong. Okay. So the question, and this is what I'll be presenting to you. You see, you could probably get one or two of these, we could explain it away. Yeah, he's just, very lucky, or it's just coincidental. But is it possible what you're seeing on your screen here for Prophet Muhammad to state and get it right, and he rolls the dice every time he's doing it, he's rolling the dice and he strikes it and he's successful on all of the scientific information that you are seeing in front of you, which I will go into detail. I'm just giving you the brief overview. Probably not. That's pretty ridiculous to assume all of this. So having said that, I'll give up a little bit of time, maybe 30 seconds. And then when Tom comes back up, I will then start presenting the scientific evidences from the Qur'an, and we will start examining them. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Tom. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Nadir. You did have right at 30 seconds left. So that was great timing. Okay. So Tom, let me reset this timer here. And whenever you are ready to proceed, feel free to go, and I'll start the timer whenever you're ready.
Yeah, sure. So there's absolutely nothing significant about anything in the Quran. It's just a jumbled mess of random facts with no real significance scientifically whatsoever. Most of it was stolen from Greek philosophy, which was preserved by Islamic scholars and taught throughout the time period. That's why essentially no one in science really takes it seriously. I mean, the predictions in Hinduism are significantly better, but we still don't take those seriously. I don't know why Nadir thinks anything in the Quran is significant. Maybe there's some part I just missed when I was reading through it, but as far as I can tell, they're all pretty mundane stuff that pretty much everyone knew who was just around during the time. So yeah, there's not really anything significant about the Quran at all. I don't even know what a scientific miracle, that term doesn't really make any sense. There's no such thing as a scientific miracle. It's just it's not even incoherent. I assume what he means is that it's improbable that it would occur, so that it's hard to explain how a person could know something, but it's really not. Like, nothing Muhammad knew was particularly special or significant in any way. He doesn't compare to Einstein or Newton or Ramanujan, V.S. Ramachandran, Ramanujan, the mathematician, like the guy who saved 1 billion lives, Norman Borlaug. Like, there are a million brilliant people who did amazing things, and by Nadir's criterion, if we're saying that these things Muhammad did require a god, well, then all those guys I just listed require like 1,000 gods to support them, because they're significantly more prolific in what they accomplished, and Muhammad isn't really in anything he accomplished as far as I know. But I will look forward to hearing Nadir's arguments to see if he presents anything interesting, and I will end there.
Okay. All right. Great.
Did you want to? Okay, I guess he had a little bit more time, but okay, I guess I can start.
Yeah. He said he wanted to end there, so
Okay,
that was his opening. Okay. All right. So, Brother Nadir, you'll have 2 minutes. So whenever you're ready, I'll start your time.
Okay, thanks. So let me go ahead and address some of that. Well, first of all, you said most of this was stolen from Greeks. This is what he was claiming. Well, if that's your claim, again, we could look at the cops. One of the explanations is plagiarism. But if that's the case, that he's plagiarizing all of these things, then we can automatically declare an Islamic debate victory on that one. You know why? Because if you are going to go to the Greeks and the Romans, the Persians, and steal information from those books are mired with all kinds of scientific errors. How are you able to zero in and pick up the scientifically accurate information from an ocean of misinformation, hypotheses, and postulates, and things like that? So if that's the case, that is obviously not going to be a very good explanation to explain away all the scientific information which I'm going to give you. You see, that's a one-trick pony. It could work once, maybe twice. But that's really, I would advise you, kind of give you a stern warning here. Don't use that as an explanation. You can if you want. You know why? Because we're going to run the probabilities of him getting these things right. And I'm going to give you 50%. It's a 50-50 shot of getting these things scientifically correct. But if you say that he stole it from the Greeks or the Romans, do you know what the probability of what that does to the denominator of really going to those books and succeeding and really getting scientifically accurate information that works at success,
30 seconds.
that's going to be a lot more than 50%. You're looking at 1/1000 or something like that. And I'll show you that. So it really is in your best interest, even though you may think that, don't bring that forth as your explanation, because that's going to make it so highly improbable when we crunch the numbers. And as you said, and in fact, you said something, there's no such thing. All the scientific information could have been done by others. I've already said that in my presentation. So you're chasing after a straw man.
Okay, thank you, Nadir. All right, Tom, if you'd like to respond, you have 2 minutes.
Nadir must have some new interesting understanding of a straw man, because if I literally copied what he said, then it's not a straw man. It's literally what he said. A straw man is when you misrepresent someone's position, but that's interesting. So yeah, we know that for sure. Islamic scholars took many information from the Greek. It was common knowledge during the time period. Muhammad absolutely knew it, unless he was a complete ignoramus. So the fact that he could recite that information that was known from the Greeks isn't really hard to surmise. There's nothing special there. And I don't know what Nadir means by that somehow improbable. Like, no, that's the most probable thing. Like, how would that be improbable that you heard other facts that other people discovered and then you recited those facts? That's how education works. I don't know if Nadir I don't know how Nadir comes to the conclusion that education is improbable. That's kind of how most kids learn things. I don't understand his argument there. So yeah, I really didn't understand any of his points there, because he didn't make any. He just kind of said stuff that didn't make any sense or wasn't relevant to any of the topics. So I don't know where to go from there.
Okay, you still have 54 seconds. You want to stop there?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so Brother Nadir, you have 2 minutes to respond. Go ahead. Whenever you're ready.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Sure.
Okay, so let me just share my desktop over here. So in my presentation, didn't I say it is humanly possible, does not require God to make all the statements in the Quran which agree with science? So this is a straw man. You're chasing after a straw man. I'm already giving you that. But what is not possible is for one man to continuously make scientifically correct statements over and over again. So that's the argument you're going to need to deal with tonight. So without further ado, let me begin the first agreement with science, and that's the question on alcohol. So we know from science say that alcohol is a drug. Okay, we know that from a scientific point of view, alcohol is a drug, and the Quran gave a scientifically correct statement in terms of alcohol, in which it condemned it. So, in fact, let me find my notes over here. Yeah, here we go. So, from research, because the Quran condemned alcohol, we know that Muslim women are 50 times less likely to give birth to a fetal alcohol syndrome baby. This is a disease which occurs in children when the mother drinks alcohol. 50 times less likely. From a scientific point of view, the statement which the Quran gave, not only does it agree with science, but it has greatly helped humanity. Let me open up my notes here a little bit so you guys can see that. But not only that, but we also know
30 seconds.
Some people, like indigenous people, who can't have any alcohol, and as a result, the landscape is filled with drunk indigenous people, as you see in America. There are none like that in the Islamic world. So now you have two options. Either he intended to do all this good, or he didn't intend. If he didn't intend it, then this falls under the category of coincidence, and we could chalk it up as a coincidence, as a human explanation for this.
Okay, thank you, Nadir. All right, Tom, you have 2 minutes.
So I think Nadir needs to tell us what he thinks a straw man fallacy is, because if I'm literally quoting what he says, then it can't be a straw man. So I think he may just not know what a straw man is, but it's not really one of the arguments here. So again, nothing Nadir said was actually presenting evidence. He just said, hey, Islam denounces alcohol, which isn't a scientific statement. Science doesn't make prescriptions, so it has nothing to do with science. And everyone knew alcohol was poison way before Muhammad. Like literally, this argument he's using for fetal alcohol syndrome was known by the Greeks 1,200 years prior, because they literally said women were not supposed to drink alcohol specifically because it would harm the children. So where the Quran doesn't actually say that. The Quran just denounces alcohol, and Nadir makes these extraneous, ridiculous connections that somehow that meant that Muhammad wanted to prevent fetal alcohol syndrome, which it doesn't say that at all. Like, Muhammad probably knew nothing about this and had no idea that there was a connection between those two. He just realized that, yes, alcohol is bad. People do bad things when they're drunk, so let's outlaw alcohol. And that was essentially the extent of the Quran's take on alcohol. But the Greeks and Romans knew this, specifically said this, actually verbatim, that alcohol causes damage to children, so women should not drink alcohol. Where, as opposed to Islam, which just outlaws alcohol as a whole. So this argument does nothing to support his case at all. This is exactly zero. This is zero evidence for anything spectacular. And how this relates to God is unknown. Like, a guy wrote down alcohol is bad in a book, therefore God. I don't get it.
Okay. All right. So thank you there, Tom. And so, Nadir, you have 2 minutes to respond whenever you're ready.
Sure. So actually, I agree with most of what Tom is saying, because at the end, he says he doesn't get it. Well, he's going to get it in the end. So as I said, when you appeal to the Greeks and the Romans, they knew about this. So therefore you copied from that person. The probability of copying things from the Greeks and Romans and actually getting it right is really high. We're talking about 1 over 1,000. Okay, fine. And then he said, Muhammad must not have knew nothing about this, about the effects of FAS and how it also, if you look in the other good factors which we see in other good consequences which we see in the Islamic world, there's no drunk Indian people like you see or Eskimos and Aborigines as we see in the Western world. This is scientifically significant information, and the response the response to alcohol, which in the Quran is scientifically correct. From a scientific point of view, you don't need alcohol. You can go about your life without it. That is acceptable from science. Now, he said this is something which everybody knew. That's what he said. No, it's not that easy to come up with the right dosage there. Let me show you somebody who didn't know. Okay, and we take it to the Bible. So let me just first correct you here. John chapter 2, verse 7 and 11. Here we see Jesus turned water to wine. And in many passages in the Bible, it says, drink a little bit of wine for thy stomach's sake. Wine
30 seconds.
Medicinally. So here's what we have. As we can see, we can chalk it up as a coincidence, meaning he did not have the intent to save those millions of children from FAS and American Indians and people like that, but it accidentally happened because I was just copying from the Greeks and Romans, and or maybe it was just he was guessing, he saw something bad happening. So that means this can be chalked up as a coincidental occurrence, what we see in the Quran. So I'll move on to the next point after he gets done.
Okay, thank you, Nadir. And Tom, you have 2 minutes.
So Nadir attracted a straw man there, because I didn't say he copied this from the Greeks. Like, no one needed to copy this from the Greeks. Everyone knew alcohol hurts you. Alcohol is bad. You can see it kill people. There were always drunks who died from alcohol poisoning thousands of years before we knew of alcohol poisoning. This is common knowledge. Like, everybody knew alcohol is poison. It's kind of the point. You're just letting it ferment. It's just rotting something. So clearly, if you're poisoning it, it's going to be bad for you. This is the fact that a guy wrote this down in a book is not a scientifically significant fact. You could find billions of people who did this, literally. And telling you not to do it isn't a scientific fact at all. It's not a fact. It's a prescription. Facts are descriptive. Prescriptions are not. They're prescriptive. So this isn't a scientific fact whatsoever. It's just telling us not to drink alcohol, like pretty much everybody. And science doesn't care what you can live with or without. Science, again, doesn't tell you what you should do. It just tells you the consequences of certain actions based on facts. The Quran doesn't. The Quran just says, don't drink alcohol. And so it has nothing to do with FAS, which the Greeks already knew. So this wouldn't, even if it did, that wouldn't be significant. Like, if it literally said that women shouldn't drink alcohol because it could damage the baby, then that could be reasonably have been copied from the Greeks, because the Greeks already knew this. But it doesn't even say that. It just says don't drink alcohol. There's nothing significant here. This is like, look at the trees, therefore God. This is like a Donald Trump argument. Nobody knew that alcohol could cause FAS. No, This is a ridiculous argument.
Okay, and that was right at the 2-minute mark. Okay, great. Okay, so Nadir, you have 2 minutes to respond.
So let me correct him on his factual factual mistakes here. He said, "Oh, everybody knew alcohol's bad. Everybody knows it's all poison." No, it didn't actually. You see, we see in the Bible it actually prescribes alcohol for thy stomach's sake, and you will see actually alcohol is used medicinally. It's actually mentioned in many books as something favorable to drink, and there's many examples. I just use the Bible as one, so that's factually incorrect. But look, he's saying, look, Muhammad could not have known that he was going to save millions of children from FAS, and I totally agree with that. So what he's having I think a hard time understanding is, if you say Muhammad did not intend to save those children from FAS, or or all the Indian people from alcoholism, then this falls under the definition of a coincidence. This is an unexpected, something was unintentional. You were intending to do something else. Maybe you saw some people doing their bar fight or something. Nah, I'm writing my Quran. Yeah, this is not good. Yeah, alcohol's banned. And as a result, unexpectedly, accidentally, you saved millions of children from FAS. That's a coincidence. Let's look at some more coincidences. Can you guys see my desktop?
Not right now, brother.
Okay, so what we also know from history, so but the coincidences keep happening with the Quran. We also know that the Quran triggered what is known as a scientific revolution. This is called the Golden Age of Islam. And let me read to you a quote from medievalhistory.net. It's that all Western advances in civil engineering, mathematics, chemistry, medicine, and astronomy were founded upon the medieval sciences of Islam. And so what we know, and the historians give credit to the Quran. It was the prophet. It was a holy, as we see from this reference over here. It was a holy text which placed a value on education, science, discovery, which brought us this. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Okay, that's okay. All right, brother. All right, so Tom, you have 2 minutes to respond.
So Nadir just pretty much granted that there's nothing special about saying alcohol is bad. He's just saying, well, not literally everyone. I mean, I guess the babies that were like 1 year old didn't know that it was bad for you. But clearly by everyone, you don't mean literally everyone. Like every culture, every wise human being on the planet at the time knew this. Every wise human being on the planet knew it was bad pretty much ever. The Bible was actually right in that quote, because alcohol is a sedative. It calms you down and decreases pain. It's a painkiller. So it does actually treat things too. So the Bible also knew alcohol is bad, and there are many examples of that in the Bible. So there's absolutely nothing significant about anything he said. He's just somehow going from a guy wrote alcohol bad in a book, therefore God. That's ridiculous. Like, anyone can just write down alcohol bad. They don't need a God for this. Secondly, inspiration of a scientific revolution. Not relevant whatsoever. Like, lots of things can inspire a scientific revolution. An apple falling from a tree inspired Newton to a scientific revolution. Does that mean that there was a God behind the apple? No. This is an appeal to consequence fallacy, which means that you're saying, there was a good consequence because they believed this, therefore it's true. Straight up not fallacy. Fallacy doesn't work. No. So neither of the arguments that you're presented are even coherent. They're about as bad as the lights and colors prove God, Jesus guy. So this is pretty ridiculous.
Okay, and all right, you had 30 seconds left. That's okay. All right, so Nadir, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Yeah, so basically, as you can see, he's submitting false information to everybody here. So let me correct him. He said everybody knew this was all poison. There's no facts to back up what he is saying. He's making it up, basically. He said the Bible got it right, actually. No, the Bible got it wrong, because the Bible said that it administered this drug to a general population. And within that general population, you have kids, you have pregnant women. And if you looked at the study, which I actually did present to you, they said you have to focus on the Christians because their religion allows drinking. So no, the Bible did not get it right. It did not give a correct prescription here. Okay, so this is factually incorrect information. And not only is he just making stuff up, but he's now chasing after straw man. He says, God wrote alcohol bad in the Bible, therefore God. That's not my argument. That's silly. Okay, this is a straw man argument. And they said there are good consequences of the Quran on this scientific, revolution that the Quran started. Therefore, it's true. It's a consequence fallacy. Only problem is that's not my argument. I don't even think he's in this discussion or debate but that's okay. You know, I'm gonna do my best to explain to you. Here's my argument here. Okay, so the issue here is the issue of coincidence. Okay, when I'm bringing up the issue about the scientific history about triggering a scientific revolution, either Muhammad intentionally did it or did not intend to do it. If it's an unintended consequence of maybe so he was doing something, but that couldn't have been his intention to do that, then this is yet another coincidence, which we are finding in the Quran. So now we have two coincidences. So the issue here is eventually this is going to get ridiculous, and we're going to be able to rule out if all this stuff is coincidence.
Okay, thank you, Nadir. And Tom, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I just Googled it to prove Nadir wrong in 30 seconds. Yes, the Bible does reject alcohol. Say, don't drink alcohol in like multiple verses. It says, do not get drunk on wine, Ephesians 5. Wine is a mocker and beer is a brawler. Whoever's led astray of them is not wise, Proverbs 20. 1 Peter 4, 1 Timothy 5. Ecclesiastes 9, there's lots of these examples. Everybody knew alcohol is wrong. If Nadir just isn't aware that pretty much everyone in society knew alcohol was poison, literally because you make it by rotting it, then I think Nadir just needs to look up history a little bit, because this is literally a Donald Trump argument. Nobody knew alcohol was bad. Nobody knew alcohol was bad before Muhammad. Clearly not the case. Everybody knew alcohol was bad. So there's nothing spectacular about this whatsoever. This is just the most mundane, boring fact imaginable that someone said don't drink alcohol. I don't even know why he thinks this counts as evidence of anything other than, well, he could speak because he told people. He didn't actually write it down, because that would be evidence he could write, which would be more than what Nadir has. So yeah, none of that's actually evidence, and neither is a second point that, again, causing scientific revolution, appeal to consequences, not actually evidence of anything. Muhammad didn't actually present any scientific evidence of any kind. So if some people were inspired by the Quran to look into science and then cause a scientific revolution, Muhammad didn't do that. Those other people did. Just like God caused a scientific revolution for Newton when he thought that the planets were organized by God, but it wasn't the God that did it.
Okay. All right, Nadir, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Oh, thanks. So what's happening here? He's just, he's submitting fallacious and false information. Now he's claiming that the Bible condemns alcohol. So let me just refute him with scientific fact. If you go back to the study of where it showed Muslim women are 50 times less likely to drink to give birth to a fetal alcohol baby. The same study said, in contrast, wine is a part of the communion of the Catholic faith, and abstinence is much less common among Catholics. The study continues and say you got to focus on the Christians, because this is where we're going to find the fetal alcohol baby. So here's a question for Tom. He's just Googling here. If the Bible condemns alcohol, how do you explain that? And I can show you 2 or 3 different studies. All of them are focusing on the Christians. That doesn't make any sense. So anyways, again, he's just submitting false information at this point. And so he's chasing after straw man. But he's actually kind of giving me the rope to hang himself with here. He says, look, regarding that scientific revolution, which the Quran triggered, he says, Muhammad didn't do that. Other people did. You see, I'm glad you have said that, because what he's showing you is Muhammad, that was not his intention. Well, if that was not intention, but yet it happened, then this is yet another coincidence that we are seeing in the Quran. And remember, coincidence is something unexpected to happen. But if you see it happening over and over and over again, then this cannot be a coincidence. So the issue here tonight is not that, okay, the Quran is true because look at all the good consequences, and the Quran is true because it wrote alcohol is bad, therefore God. Those are your straw mans. Okay, that's not my argument. The issue here, you need to understand the concept of what a coincidence is. And these occurrences, which we're finding in the Quran, either it was intended or unintended. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, Tom, you have 2 minutes.
So again, I literally just I read the quotes from the Bible proving Nadir wrong. Apparently, just I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know how to read. I don't know why he doesn't understand that. Like literally, the Bible says in multiple verses, alcohol is bad. He thinks that because Christians don't listen to the Bible, somehow the Bible doesn't say those things, even though I just read them. Like again, appeal to consequences fallacy. The fact that people do or do not act on what it says does not actually change what it actually says. Secondly, again, nothing he said there was actually an evidence of any kind. Saying that people were inspired by the Quran and did stuff. That's literally the same of every ideology. If you have something that you're passionate about, that's what inspires you. People get inspired by cars and they make progress and discoveries. People get inspired by everything. People who are autistic get obsessed with a random topic like light or magnifying glasses, and that thing inspires them to make a discovery. Nothing about this is spectacular. This is literally just everyday stuff humans do all over the world. Again, I don't know why Nadir thinks any of this is evidence. I just don't think he knows enough history. It's again Donald Trump argument. Nobody did this ever before. Nobody knew this common fact that everyone knew throughout all history. That's essentially Nadir's argument. It's the Donald Trump argument. Nadir is the Donald Trump argument guy. All right, I'm done.
Okay. All right, Nadir, you have 2 minutes. We're not hearing you, Nadir.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to ignore his false information about the Bible condemns alcohol because obviously the studies show that's not the case. Okay, but we're gonna ignore that. So let's look at some more coincidences which are taking place in the Quran. So let us go to the issue about to chapter 95, verse 15 and 16 of the Quran. Here is a verse in the Quran which says, "Can you guys see my desktop by any chance?"
No, brother.
Oh, let me share my desktop here real quick. Okay, so let's go right here.
Nadir, you can leave it up and he can turn it on and off for us.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Okay, so chapter 9, the verse says, "Nay, if he ceases not, we will catch him by the forelock, a lying, sinful forelock." Now, the word in Arabic there is actually nasia. And what this is actually a word which is talking about the frontal part of the head. Now, you can interpret this a couple of ways, but one of the valid interpretations, you can say maybe he's referring to the hair. That's one interpretation. But one of the valid interpretations also is talking about the front part of your head doing this action of lying and sinning. And this is, and what we know from science is that the frontal lobe, the anterior part of the brain, of the lobe, is a place for cognitive functions and reasoning and judgment over here. And so if you look at this, one of the valid interpretations, there's two interpretations there, but one of the valid ones actually does agree with science. So how much more time do I have?
You have 30 seconds right now.
Okay, so again, this could also be another interpretation, is just probably referring to the forelock of the hair. But remember, when you see this, multiple interpretations, we need to question if one of them agrees with science. And so this obviously does agree with science. And so if you don't accept this, and Muhammad was intending to agree with science, then this means it is another unintended consequence, another, you could say, accident. So go ahead, TJ.
Okay, that was right at 2 minutes. Okay, Tom, you have 2 minutes.
This person I found on Facebook must be just immensely knowledgeable about neurology. They said, "I hate liars. I want to punch them in the face." And by Nadir's logic, what they are predicting the fact that the frontal lobe deals with lying. Oh my God, they're geniuses. How did they ever find this out? Or is it an ambiguity fallacy, just like every one of Nadir's examples so far? Like, I think he doesn't understand the difference between unintended consequence and ambiguity fallacy that you can interpret any way you want. This is pretty much the standard laissez-faire interpretation of make your favorite text fit whatever you can find that creationists use. It's not evidence at all. Like, I mean, his argument is literally the same, that this person on Facebook somehow predicted that the frontal cortex deals with lying because they said, "I hate liars and I want to punch them in the face," which is the same as the quote he read from the Quran where they want to grab liars by the front of the head. Like, how is this even the thing? Like, again, this is like Donald Trump level argumentation here. I don't understand why Nadir even thinks this counts as evidence. Like, No one takes this seriously. No one would ever take this seriously. I don't get it. All right, I'm done.
Okay. All right, Nadir, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I really like his example. I want to punch him in the face, but that's kind of scientifically inaccurate. But let me fix it up for you. I want to punch him in the head. That guy's a liar. I want to punch him in the head. Now that will work. And so this constitutes as a coincidence. Meaning, of course, when your real intention was you want to hurt him. He made you mad. But it was not your intention. That statement actually does agree with science because you're acting as if this part, the front part of his head, is what's causing him to do this type of bad behavior. So this obviously would fall under the definition of a coincidence. You said something, but really you were meaning something else. But what you said kind of does agree with science. And that's all I'm saying, what we are saying about the Quran. Look, this verse, it is not a matter of me just making the fact, kind of reading science into the Quran. That actually is a very logical and sensible explanation for the verse. There's many, like I said, a lying, sinful nasia. The verse literally says that it is this front part of the head which is causing him to lying and sinful. So what he says, why does this count as evidence? Because this adds to the case of coincidence. We have now 3 coincidences. In fact, TJ gave me the best example right there. I want to punch him in the face, that's an awesome example of a coincidence. Now we have 3 examples of coincidences. Do you see where this is going? You see, a coincidence is something unexpected. Oh, what a pleasant surprise. I didn't really mean to that. But if you saw it happen 3 times in a row, then this cannot be coincidences. The agreement with science over and over again, we cannot look at this as coincidence anymore. There's got to be another explanation. So let me move on to the next scientific fact. Go ahead, TJ.
Okay. All right, Tom, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so apparently Nadir thinks saying alcohol is bad, inspiring people that follow you, and saying that you want to grab someone by the front of the head because you're angry at them is somehow evidence of God. Like, these are the most mundane, boring facts imaginable. Hinduism has better predictions by like a significant margin, by like millions of times. It predicts the Earth is 4.3 billion years old, and it's actually 4.5. So they were pretty close on that one. That's really good. They predict the multiverse hypothesis. That's pretty good. They predicted certain, like the entire book predicts things about how the future is going to unfold and how societies are going to develop, and they got these right. These are good predictions. Like, nothing Nadir said are good predictions. These are just kind of like a joke. These aren't serious. None of these are serious forms of evidence. It's just like, I predict the sun will come to rise tomorrow. Woohoo! Okay, cool. That's great. I can predict last week's lottery numbers, and he thinks these are special because the Donald Trump argument. He's just, nobody knew about these facts before Muhammad discovered them. Therefore, these are significant. Like, no, everyone already knew about this. These are not valid arguments. This is kind of a joke. All right, I'm done.
Okay. All right, Nadir, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay, so basically he's submitting more false information. He says everybody knew about the issue about the front forehead being the area for decision making. This is factually incorrect. I mean, so there's no real reason to chase after straw man arguments. So, not only is it just straw mans, but factually incorrect. He says he's again saying alcohol is bad, therefore it's some kind of proof for God. That, as I hope everybody can hear tonight, that's not my argument here. Okay. Then he brings up the issue of Hinduism, and there's predictions and stuff on that, and he submitted more false information in there. The issue, there were Hindu scientists which created that prediction and wrote it in a book. So this is even more false information, but that's okay. I don't care. If you can find another book which is scientifically miraculous, Allahu Akbar. That does not do anything for the case of the Quran. We can accept that, actually, because we know that God sent many prophets, not just from Abrahamic prophets, but also throughout the whole world. And fragments of that information could be present in many books. So by you bringing up Hinduism, it does nothing to the case of the Quran. But anyway, that is even a misrepresentation of Hinduism, what he's giving. But I can't chase after that. I got to very quickly move on to the next scientific information which we find in the Quran, okay? And so let me go ahead and share my desktop over here real quick here. again, and this is talking about barriers in the sea here.
30 seconds.
So and I'm going to go very quickly through this. I only got 30 seconds. So what we see over here, the Quran says inside chapter 55, verse 19 and 20, that in the seas there are barriers. Look what science says over here. It talks about in the seas where the picnic line is a distinct feature, for example, in the Baltic, blah, 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 it is a barrier which prevents deep waters from mixing with the surface water. Okay, so here we see once again an agreement between the Quran and science. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, Tom, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so apparently Nadir doesn't know about Hinduism or about facts. So again, the fact that there are barriers in the water, we knew that. For the Neanderthals knew that because they were built ships and hit reefs and things, and they realized, hey, look, there's an island. Hey, look, there's a smaller island. Hey, look, a smaller island that barely touches the water. Oh, look, there's one that's under the water that destroys our boats when we go over it. Ah, there's barriers in the sea. Like, this is wow. Like, oh my God, nobody knew there were barriers in the sea. Nobody knew. Hilarious. That's none of the things Nadir presented are actually evidence. They're all just kind of just ambiguity fallacies of gibberish. And it's like you could pick better facts here. Like if you actually really tried to ambiguate these, you could make them into good predictions. But Nadir just makes them into the most bland nonsense things that aren't even evidence. Like a good prediction is like his Hindu cosmology predicts that in the Vishnu Purana that ancient Hindu scripture is 4.3 billion years was the age of the earth, which is close to the 4.5 billion years. Like these are literally quotes from the actual Hindu scriptures. Like these exist, and they predict that cities will be dominated by thieves. The Vedas will be contaminated by speculative interpretations of atheists, political leaders, and will virtually consume the citizens. Well, holy shit, they got that one right. They're amazing. Like, masters will abandon their incapacitated servants, and even if that servant has been in the family for generations, cows will be abandoned or killed when they stop giving milk. Wow, they knew agriculture was going to work. Like, you could just read the Srimad Bhagavatam and you get tons of predictions about society, exactly like in every religious text. Like there's nothing special about this. This isn't an argument that there's lots of holy texts. There's an argument of lots of random people writing random stuff and they get lots of intuitive guesses right. Like there's none of this is evidence. I mean, at least these are good. At least the Hindu ones are good. The ones Nadir putting there are just silly. Barriers in the ocean, like really?
Okay. All right, okay. Nadir, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so what he's actually doing, he's giving me the rope to hang him with here tonight. He gave another beautiful example of a coincidence, okay? And I think what it is, he doesn't understand what a coincidence is. But that's okay. I hope this will be a good learning opportunity for you, TJ. The whole thing appealed to Hinduism. Obviously, I cannot debate Hinduism right here, but I'm okay with that. That doesn't take away from the case of the Quran in any way. Let there be 2 or 3 miraculous, supernatural books. I'm totally cool with that. That doesn't take away from anything of my evidence. So this is yet another irrelevant point, and this is a death blow to atheism. When we see evidence of a divine creator, which you yourself are acknowledging now, why should we believe in atheism? And you're supposed to be an atheist, yet you are now showing how there is supernatural evidence in these books. But all that is irrelevant. But I like your example you gave. Look, you go out in the seas and you could hit a reef, or what about islands? You could hit an island, right? So yeah, that's kind of like a barrier. Right. But that's not the way. So maybe that is what he was really referring to, an island, okay, or something like that. But he articulated and worded the Quran in such a way which does agree with modern science, as we can see from the screen here. It says, between them is a barrier which none of them can transgress. And we know in science that the seas do have a barrier. It's called the picnic line. It is a barrier which prevents deep waters from mixing with surface, blah, blah, blah. I already read that to you. Okay, you can look at the screen to get all my references. So here yet is another coincidence. Muhammad didn't mean to talk about the picnic line, but he just worded it in a way which I actually agreed with the picnic line. Coincidence after coincidence after coincidence. Right now, I believe I'm ready to make the case and finish him off, showing you that this cannot be the work of a man. Is that my time?
Yes, that's your time.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Tom, you have 2 minutes.
From what we heard, we literally heard Nadir read the quote. We can prove definitively this is what's called an ambiguity fallacy in philosophy. That literally it could be interpreted in many ways. It doesn't refer to anything in particular and can be proved to not be evidence definitively. And every rigorous standard of formal logic, like we know that doesn't work. I don't think Nadir knows standard logic or what fallacies are or history. And he keeps using the Trump argument. Nobody knew this common fact that everyone knew. Therefore, Muhammad and the Quran, like none of that's evidence. Like I'm good. I can stop there.
Okay, all right. So Nadir, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I won't even chase after the straw man that nobody knew this common fact. That's not my argument at all. Okay, so what I'm showing you here is, look, when you see something which agrees with science, it can be many possible explanations. I wrote in bold on my opening presentation that all the Quran, the scientific information that you see in the Quran, hypothetically can be produced by a human being. But what is not possible is to continuously get it right over and over and over again. I mean, author things in the Quran which agree with science. You could 2 or 3 of them, you can say, okay, that was not your intent. You meant to talk about islands, but you just said it like this. Let's look at some more coincidences. Okay, over here. Inside chapter 24, verse 40 over here. It says over in this verse, or is it like the darkness in the vast deep sea, overwhelmed with great waves, topped by great waves, topped by dark clouds, darkness one above the other. If a man stretches out his hands, he can hardly see it. And for him who Allah has not appointed light, for him there is no light. So what we know, it says in the vast deep seas. Now that's open for interpretation. It could be like far out into the sea. Well, and the Bible and other books kind of talk about that in the vast deep seas. That's what I mean. They're going far out into the sea. But if you look at the text, if you stretch out your hand, you can hardly see it. Now you're talking about something inside. 2 scientifically correct statements in here. It talks about great waves topped with great waves. And we all know from science today that there are things within the seas called internal waves. There's the waves on top, and of course, there's the internal waves. And I'll get you a reference for that in just a second here. But not only that, but we also know that once you travel down, I think like 1,000 meters down into the ocean, you are going to come to a point where there is absolutely no light. For example, 600 feet. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. All right, Tom, you have 2 minutes.
Wow, another benign fact everyone knew at the time, that the deeper you go in water, the darker it gets. So probably at the bottom, there's no light. Like when you look down, you see nothing because light doesn't reflect off the bottom. Again, another super benign fact that everyone knew that isn't evidence of anything. Like, I don't know why Nadir thinks these are special. Like any 8-year-old could have predicted these at the time of Muhammad. Like there's nothing special here. I don't get it. Again, real predictions are made by the Hindu religions, like Ramanujan, the great mathematician, one of the greatest in the world, attributed his mathematics to a god, said it was given to him by God. Like, at least that's good. Like that's actual data, actual novel information that no one had discovered before. Nadir is just listing random facts that everyone knew and saying this is special. What? Like, I find it hilarious. Like, I didn't realize people thought the Donald Trump argument was a real thing. Like wow, nobody knew this random fact. Therefore, evidence. That seems to be his argument. It's pretty hilarious. All right, I'm done.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Nadir?
So he's submitting false and misleading information again. He said these are all random facts which everybody knew. Look, TJ, I did tell you that when you make claims, because we've had this discussion before, you say things which there is no proof for. And if you research, these things turn out to be false. And so I did ask you that when you make a claim, you need to back that up. Look at the screen. Look at what you're seeing on the screen. Look how much time I spent getting references from science, and so that I can back up what I'm saying with reference. Now, you are saying that the Bible condemns alcohol. You are making all kinds of outrageous claims here. And you're also making outrageous claims about Hinduism, but I don't care about that because you are doing a great job of telling us why we should not be atheists, because there is proof in these other religions. There is proof of a God. Look, they're in the Hindu religion, and I'm okay with that. But look, I'm going to ask you to please bring references. Now, these facts which I'm stating for you, We know there are people who study the oceans, and I can tell you this is not mentioned in any book. So we know that the Quran compared, the deep seas, that there is no light. That's one scientific fact. Internal waves. So one verse. So how many statements of the science? How many? Muhammad said, I'm going to make 3 statements about the ocean. The ocean has barriers, internal waves, and there's no light at the bottom. He worded things in a way,
30
whether
seconds.
he intended to or not, that's another question, but he worded it in a way where if you look at it, it agrees with science, one of the many interpretations here. So at this point, I believe I have made my case that when we go back and we look, this cannot all be chalked up as coincidence, but there's actually a lot more scientific evidence. So I'm just going to put some icing on the cake here. I believe the debate is won because we know a coincidence is something which is unexpected. But if you just saw it happen 5 times, that's not unexpected. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Nadir. All right, Tom, you have 2 minutes.
So yeah, would you like a citation that the sky was blue 2,000 years ago and everybody knew that also? Like, let's just pick these mundane facts. You know, you must find sources for the mundane facts. Like, wow, like you just go to Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey, any sea shanty tale. When you seek to the depths, it is dark. Oh my God, they must be magic. They must have gods that they know this information. Like, where did they get this? That the dark sea is dark. Like, how could anyone know that? Like, it must be magic. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. The sea was dark. Nobody knew. Like, it's just ridiculous. And I literally read the passages from the Bible where they say alcohol bad, just like the Quran does. Like, this is not particularly surprising. And in the Quran, they actually did drink wine and alcohol before Muhammad outlawed it, and so they allowed wine too in the Quran. So again, not surprising. I don't know. Like, literally none of this is relevant evidence. He just picked a whole bunch of mundane facts that mean nothing, that are benign, and everyone knew at the time, and said, Muhammad said these things that are benign facts. That it's literally the Trump argument. It's Donald Trump saying, nobody knew this benign fact, therefore it's special because I would just taught it and nobody knew. Like, I don't even know how to even address such a silly argument. I'm done.
Okay. All right, Nadir, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, so this whole idea, it means nothing. These scientific facts I'm presenting you mean nothing. The Quran saved millions of children from fetal alcohol syndrome. Are you telling me this means nothing? Who cares? It saved millions of indigenous people from alcoholism. The whole Western world, which you live in, by the way, you'll see reservations of drunk Indians. It means something, folks. It is important, scientifically significant information, but we don't need TJ's opinions because that's all he's doing at this point, submitting false information about the Bible. I'm not going to go defend the Bible. I'm not going to go and disparage Hinduism because most of the information he's giving you is all false and misleading. I don't care about that. And then we saw that the Quran triggered a scientific revolution. Means nothing. You see, all he's doing, he doesn't give you fact. He gives you his interpretation. Wacky, quacky interpretations. There is deep scientific significance in saving millions of children from FAS, and we have already got the researchers and academia who have already cited the Quran and pointed out Islam is a reason for why we see these great things happening. So we can always rely on science. So let me go very quickly, and let me go to the next agreement with science. Here's one or 2 verses of the Quran, which has 4 scientifically facts, which once again line up with science. It talks about the bee. It says, and the bee, which let me just read for you. And everything in yellow is a scientific fact, which takes to the mountains and the trees, which is true. It's a female bee mentioned here, and the correct role is given there. Female bee leaves it, eats of the fruit. We now know bees eat fruit, and then comes from their bellies, wherein is a healing. It's talking about honeys, and we all know that the honey comes from what is known as the honey stomach inside the bee, wherein there is a healing for man. And of course, we know that is true from science. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Nadir. All right, Tom, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I think Nadir just needs to study his Arabic there because it doesn't actually say female bees. It says young bees. plural. So the word there is the feminine word, yes, but the feminine word in Islam can be referred to groups, just any groups. It uses the exact same feminine to refer to groups of oxen and groups of birds and groups of people. Apparently, they all must just be women. There must be no men in those oxen. Wait a minute, oxen are male. The female bulls? What? Oh my God! Just nope. Yeah, that. So it doesn't actually say female. I mean, even if it did, it's not really that impressive. Again, random, mundane, pointless facts. Bees. Yeah, that's great evidence of the creator of the universe. Bees and oceans are dark, and it caused a scientific revolution, like the apple falling from Newton's tree. Like, just pick random mundane facts, and this is somehow evidence of a creator. Like, I don't even know. It's pretty hilarious. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Nadir, you have 2 minutes.
He's been refuted on the random mundane facts. This is his interpretation. As you see, what he's doing, he's giving his sarcasm, his his own personal interpretation, but he's not giving you fact. And then he said that he asked about my Arabic. TJ, can you speak Arabic?
Nope.
Okay. So you said the Quran, it was really talking about young bees. Did you say that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So where do you see young bees here in this text?
Well, I can't see the text, but I can give you the source because I know who does.
Okay. Who can I go to who said this?
I sent you the video like last.
Okay, this
month.
is again another. I told you. What the problem here
I
is.
provided you a reference there, so I got you on that one. I win.
The problem is, it's a recurring problem of you submitting false and misleading information. Because I can tell you from the text, it doesn't say young bee. So the bee here the bee here is male, but it says istakhazi, the females from them. Istakhazi is female. Kulli istakhazi. So that's why I'm saying that it is a female bee which leaves the hive. But here's the thing. What we have are 4 scientifically correct statements. Now, this can all be produced by human beings, okay? Each and every one of those. You could hypothetically do it. You could research. You could steal from another source or something like that. You do that. We don't care about what's scientifically accurate. What we care about is how did you make 4 statements about the bee without error? That's what's astonishing about this. Because when you start talking about things you don't know, and if you were to assume Muhammad was not a prophet, you don't know really about the science of these things, you're going to make a mistake. He had 4 attempts to make an error, and he did not. We don't care about what the Quran agrees with science on this. That's a straw man. What is significant, he didn't make an error after 4 tries. That's significant.
Okay. All right, Tom, you have 2 minutes.
Bees have wings. Bees can fly. Bees drink nectar, and bees lay eggs. I just listed 4 facts about bees, and I didn't get any wrong. Wow, I must be a god. This is not impressive logic. There are tons and tons of factual errors in the Quran. Like, it's not even close. So the fact that he got a few of them right, and you can cherry pick the right ones, is again not impressive. Ambiguity fallacy, cherry picking fallacy, Texas sharpshooter fallacy. Like, literally all he's doing is just known formal fallacies that don't work. None of them are evidence, and he's just picking the most mundane, ridiculous facts because the Quran doesn't really offer anything significant. Again, all the things I showed from Hinduism are actually more interesting. None of them are evidence of anything. It's just more guesses. And so, yeah, it's pretty silly that he thinks this is actually evidence of a god, because it's not. None of it is. It's pretty silly.
Okay. All right, Nadir, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, so won't even respond to his personal interpretations. This is silly. There are things more interesting. Offers nothing significant. All of this, I think, has been debunked. We showed very significant information in the Quran. So these are just things which really I'm going to ignore. And then he tried to pull a canard in which he says, look, I could bring you 4 facts about the bees. They laid eggs, they laid hives, or whatever. There are obvious things which you can deduce about a bee, which is not miraculous, of course, but that's not what we have here. The gender of the bee, which we talked about, is something which is determined by a microscope. Bees eat fruit. In my discussion with PZ Myers, I'm sorry, even he didn't know that bees eat fruit. 99% of people don't know that bees eat fruit. This is actually a modern day discovery that there is a honey stomach. This is not information which people generally know. Also, so the issue here, which he has been not able to refute, is again, we don't really care about what's scientifically accurate. What we care about is that he made 4 attempts and he didn't get it wrong. At this point here, I believe we have enough information to prove that the Quran is indeed a scientific miracle, but I just would like to finish him off on a couple more scientific facts, just as icing on the cake. And so
30 seconds.
Okay, so once again, we're going to go to ants. The Quran made 2 scientifically correct statements about the ants. It says over here inside chapter 27, verse 18, "O ant, enter your dwellings, that you not be crushed by Solomon and his soldiers while they perceive not." So it's talking about talking ants. Well, this is something which has only been which is only recently discovered, that ants actually do talk. They do communicate. Google keyword search, talking ants. There's many examples. So the other thing is, look, this is also an alarm being set off. Go ahead, please.
Okay. All right, Tom, and you have 2 minutes.
Yeah. So again, one of Nadir's earlier arguments was that somehow the fact that the Quran saved many people from fetal alcohol syndrome is evidence that it's true. Well, that's straight up an appeal to consequence fallacy. Again, he just keeps listing mundane facts, which I've already debunked. Like, I'm ready to go to Q&A. I've crushed him so badly on this. It's just hilarious. So I'm done.
Okay. All right, Nadir, you have 2 minutes. We can't hear you right now, brother.
Oh, I'm sorry. So let me go ahead and sum it up for you very quick here. This one more scientific information. We now know from science today that yes, ants do talk. In fact, you'd probably Google that. Let me get a reference for you. Where is it? Yeah. Simple. Hair ants talk. You can Google that. You can look at the references. We've got the voices, which you can. Now, let me quote from you from a Vice article. Remember, the Quran said not only do they talk, but they sound off an alarm. The sounds made by a mature ant pupa serves 2 functions. The research suggests the first, as indicated above, is to signal an alarm. Okay? What did the Quran say? It talked about the ant signaling an alarm. "O ants, enter your dwellings, that you not be crushed by Solomon and his soldiers while they perceive not." That he is sound, and this is exactly lining up word for word what we know from science. So again, let me show you the Google keyword search over here. Listen to these baby ants talk. You can listen to their voices, so that once again the Quran is scientifically accurate. So I'm ready to sum up my points over here. Let's go and call the cops, because we see a lot of scientifically accurate information over here. Okay. What is a source of all of the scientific information which we have listed for you? Okay. Could this be a coincidence? No. Because
30 seconds.
a coincidence is something unexpected, but if you saw it happen, at least with a bee 4 times in a row, and you see it over and over again, and TJ handed me the rope to hang him with by giving me wonderful examples of coincidences. That is not a coincidence. This cannot be a coincidence. The information in the Quran, if you look at it all in its totality, is it something obvious? No. Is it plagiarism? No. Could he have been a scientist and just discovered this? Well, no, and I'll explain to you why in my next minute.
Okay. And Tom, you have 2 minutes.
I'm ready to go to Q&A. This is just boring. I've debunked everything he said already.
Okay. All right.
Well,
So
can I take
Nadir,
the last 2 minutes just to make my point here?
sure, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So this cannot, the work of a scientist, it comes with trial and error. It comes with postulate, theories, hypothesis. We don't see any of that in the Quran. What we see are exact, scientifically correct statements in there. So the thing is this: look at all of the scientific information in the Quran. Let's sum it up here. We talked. In fact, I can find my summary here. Here we go. We saw that the Quran was right, gave the right answer on alcohol. 4 facts about bees. 2 facts about ants. 1 fact about brains. 3 facts about the seas. And then we didn't go over a lot of this. Number 7, we didn't go over, but that's okay. And then to top all that off, it's sparked a scientific revolution which has benefited all of humanity. What is a source of all of the scientific information? Individually, you could do it. You could say Muhammad had no intent to do any of these things. He meant something else like islands or whatever, barrier. Fine, that's coincidences. But that doesn't explain it. There's only one intelligent conclusion based on the scientific information, and that it is a supernatural source, along with our Hindu brothers, no problem. But what we have proved beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt is that the Quran has a supernatural origin based on the scientific information which we see in it. One man cannot be the author of all of the scientific information, and I think that case has been made. So in my remaining 30 seconds here, it's not just that the Quran is scientifically accurate, but the Quran will also bring happiness and goodness into your life. And yes, that has been scientifically proven as well. Let me show you this research over here. So here we see over here, the Muslims have the highest life satisfaction. They have a feeling of oneness that trumps Christians, Buddhists, and yogis, as studies suggest. Muslim, please. So it will bring goodness into your life. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Tom, you said you're ready to go to the Q&A. And Nadir, you ready for the Q&A as well?
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay. Do you gentlemen need to step away and get a drink of water or anything before we proceed?
Okay.
We're good.
Okay. All right. So if you'd like to join the panel and ask a question, I'm going to post a link for the panel in the chat. For the people who come on to the panel, you'll have 1 minute to present your question. And please don't try to come on and try to debate yourself. You're not here for that. You just have 1 minute to give your question. I do have one question initially that I've seen in the chat, and it's for Nadir. And it says, Nadir, when you mention barriers, the barrier verses of the Quran, what do you mean by the barriers that do not cross one another? Are you referring to reefs and islands, or are you referring to the bodies of water themselves?
I'm not sure. So what exactly? I'm not sure if I understand the question here.
The quote from the Quran says the two things do not cross, and he's asking which are the things to which the things do not cross.
Well, let's go there. So the verse actually la yanbaghi, that is actually what it says. So when it says, what is this word baghiya? This word over here, this transgression. Well, if you take that word baghi, which is right over here, and you put it into Google and images, don't do that. You might come across some very explicit pictures, because baghi means some kind of terrible transgression, and in many cases you will see it actually refers to sexual immorality, something like that. So here, there's many ways you can interpret that. Some of the interpretation is that they do not violate God's law. That's one interpretation. And if you go to Jummah Khutbah, you will hear the word baghi, that Allah save us from the baghi, from the terrible immorality, sexual immoralities of this world. So again, this is that is what the word baghiya actually means. I hope that answers your question.
Well, Nadir, I think you missed the point of the question. It's talking about the bodies of waters themselves that do not mix. Correct?
It doesn't say do not mix. Mix is ikhtalat, and so there's really no mention here of mixing in the verse.
That these two bodies of water come together, and in between them is a barrier that do not cross.
Nadir is saying that it doesn't say they do not cross. He has a different interpretation of what it says. That's what he's saying.
It does not violate God's law. That is, if you look at what the meaning of the word baghiya means, it's not talking about mixing. It's talking about some kind of violation.
Brother, what surah and verse is that?
That's chapter 55, verse 19 and 20.
Okay, all right. So we'll proceed to the next questioner. Looks like we have Josh Wolf backstage. So we'll go to Josh Wolf and let him come on and ask a question. Hi, Josh. Welcome to the show.
Hey.
All right, Josh. You have a question for
I got a question for TJump. Yeah, what would it actually take for you to convert to Islam? Like, what would be the definitive argument that Nadir could give that you'd go, okay, yep, I got it. I'm a convert.
Well, it would take novel testable prediction, so it wouldn't be an argument. You'd have to actually present evidence. So you'd have to say, if Muhammad and Allah were real, I could predict that if I pray to Allah, He'll give you a gold brick every time you pray. I pray, He gives you a gold brick. That would be good evidence. It doesn't have to be a gold brick. That's just an example. But any novel testable predictions would be good evidence.
Okay, but would you be willing to actually do the experiment? Because it would take you actually doing it, right, to test whether it worked or not.
As long as it was easy and didn't take 2 years of constant praying, sure.
Okay, so there is a limit on the experiment that you'd be willing to do to prove it. Isn't it? Don't we say that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, though? And if we're talking about something as big as this, wouldn't you expect that you might have to pray for 2 years? And wouldn't that just be a small thing compared to what you're actually testing?
No, I'd say that if that was the case, then someone else would have to do the work for it, because I'm not going to put in the effort.
Okay, Josh, thank you for your question. Nadir,
Allahu Akbar.
I have a question. I have a question for TJ. TJ, I spend a lot of time showing you the great things Islam has done for humanity, saving children from fetal alcohol syndrome and saving indigenous people from alcoholism. And the list goes on. I even showed how Islam brings happiness and goodness in your life, all documented by science. Muslims have the highest life satisfaction. They have a feeling of oneness that trumps Christian. And this from the research, and the list goes on. And so here's my question for you. I can show you all this documented from science and academia. What good has atheism done for humanity?
Well, atheism actually made the largest contributions to science in the past 20th century of anybody. So pretty much everything in the past 200 years has been pretty much mostly thanks to science. So all of our medicine, all of our technology, all of the standards of living are pretty much due to atheism. So
now, Tom, do you have, I'm presenting references from academic references. Do you have any reference to back up what you're saying?
Yeah, you could just Google the people who made all the discoveries. They're pretty much all atheists.
Show me a real reference from.
If you pay me, I'll do the research for you, Nadir.
So as of right now, there's nothing which has been documented by science.
Nope, I do. I'm just not going to give it to you because I don't have to. So
you don't have to.
If you just know the basic history of science, the vast majority of discoveries in the past 20th century are from atheists, like Nima Arkani Hamad, like Sean Carroll, like Carl Sagan.
This is your
Neil Turk.
Yeah.
No, those were all names. Those were I can't interpret their names.
From a scientific academic standpoint.
I just gave you a whole bunch of names. If you want me to, Nadir, stop interrupting. Nadir, don't interrupt. If you want me to do the research for you, pay me.
Okay.
It looks like we have another follow-up question to Surah 55 of the Quran verses yeah.
What?
I'm trying to read it off my phone. My phone is stuck. I'm trying to read it off my phone.
Well,
okay,
Nadir, so Nadir can pull it up. Oh, it's a question?
Yeah, it's a question. I'll get back to it in a second. Let me go to Brother Muhammad. Brother Muhammad, do you have a question for either of the debaters?
Yeah, I can ask a quick question. A little bit comment as well. Whoever is the brother atheist, I'm not sure what name
Tom.
he had.
Tom.
You are a winner in your gestures itself. Your smile is killing, and your eyes. Oh my good Lord, expressions are there. So anyway, I was watching this conversation. Is it okay, Tom, if you can address that question where other brother was saying that there is deep waters, and deep waters has layers, and you cannot even see the hand if you pull out. How science actually, and when science actually identified this sort of news, is that possible to see with reference?
No, because it predates human history. So that was already known back when Neanderthals were building ships and things. You knew that if you went into the water.
Underwater, we are talking about submarine.
Yes, we already knew this.
Submarine were invented 14 years ago.
You don't need submarines. When you swim down, you can feel the current going a different direction than when you swim up.
So human can swim down that much all the way down.
You don't need to
Without
swim all the way
oxygen.
down. If you swim 200 feet down, you can see there's a lot less light, so you can infer it's
A lot
darker
less light.
further down.
Only for 200 feet down.
Yes, that means if you go
Okay.
further, there's no light. So less light, less light, less light, no light.
And the layers and all that sort of long versus the other one, what name is the brother Nadir was talking about, all the scientifically evidence there in those verses were proven before Quran. Is that correct?
Yes, all of that was common knowledge.
Any
that pretty much
reference
everyone knew.
any reference with you that who done that and where it is we can read?
Pretty much anywhere. Just look at any history document.
Anywhere?
Yes, like every.
Can we
essentially,
Google it?
Yes, you could Google it. You can just check
So-
naval history, and you can read that people said, "Oh, the sea is dark." You can read it in Homer. You can read it in the Odyssey. You can read it in every single one of them. And
All right,
yes,
Brother Muhammad, thank
like
you.
for example,
Thank you very much.
for example, there is a specific group of people called the sea nomads, the Baji, who knew all of this thousands of years ago. Like none of this is special.
Okay, can you guide us? Show me, where can I find these references that you're
Google
talking
sea
about?
nomads. If you want me to do the research for you, pay me, Nadir.
Let's see.
Sea
Tom,
nomads.
I did specifically tell you on more than one occasion.
Okay.
When you make-
If you Nadir, I already told you before. If you want me to do the research for you, pay me. I'm not going to research basic facts and find you references that the sky was blue 2,000 years ago, Nadir.
Okay, so let's go back to the question about the bodies of water. The person saying it actually gives reference. So it's saying that in verse 17 it says he is Lord of the two east and two west. Excuse me, I'm going to the wrong one here. Yes. Okay, so let me scroll up where he's got this. Okay, so it says yes, he is the Lord of the two east and two west. Then which of your Lord's favors will you deny? He merges the two bodies of fresh and salt water, yet between them is a barrier that never cross. And he says, based on the footnotes, it says it's a reference to Surah 25, chapter 25, verse 53 of the Quran, which states once again that he is the one who merges the two bodies of water, one fresh and one palatable, and the other salty and bitter, placing between them a barrier that cannot cross. And so the footnote, it says that this refers to estuaries where salt and fresh waters meet, forming brackish water. Although both waters mixed together, each still keeps its distinctive qualities. So Nadir, can you explain this in light of these verses?
See the verse, this is a very different verse from the one I quoted. I quoted chapter 55. That one is talking about between fresh and salt water. I don't know a whole lot about that. I did not. That is not part of my presentation, so I'm going to stay silent on that because I never really looked into that one.
Okay, so do you gentlemen mind if I add to something just briefly along those lines?
Sure, go for it.
So from a scientific aspect, yes, the Quran does indeed mention these two bodies of water that come together, the fresh water and the salt water, and that between them is a barrier that does not cross, that they cannot cross one another. And this is actually a scientific fact that has only been discovered with modern science. Obviously, a human being could not know when he sees two bodies of water mixing or meeting one another that they are actually not mixing with one another. The salinity in one is too dense that disallows the fresh water to combine with it. So that is a scientific fact for sure. And this was revealed 1,450 years ago in the Quran. Whether or not it was plagiarized from somewhere or wherever it came from, it's a scientifically accurate. So the Quran is in agreement with science on that point. Okay, so let's go to another questioner. Let me see, Brother Ramzi. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ramzi. Are you there? Do you have a question for one of the gentlemen or both of them?
Rahmatullah barakatuh. Thank you both for the discussion. Appreciate your time. First, my question is, so Tom was it? Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of your explanations have just been, okay, so someone could have done that. Someone could have done this and done that. Okay. And I think that's been well responded to. But here's my question. I'd like to see your response. Is it okay if I bring one example, Kenny?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
30 seconds.
Sorry. In the Quran, chapter 21, verse 32 says, "And we made the sky a protected ceiling, but they from its signs are turning away." And so my question is, what does the sky protect us from, and what would someone have needed to do to know that at the time?
Okay, thank you.
The sky doesn't protect us from anything.
Okay.
So the magnetic field, which protects us from the solar radiation, has nothing to do with the sky. It has to do with the center of the Earth. So the sky doesn't protect us from anything. It's just a body of oxygen.
Not the coldness of space. So it doesn't keep the Earth warm. Nothing.
No, what keeps us warm is, again, the center of the Earth. The air definitely keeps us warm. It doesn't protect us from the coldness of space. What does that? What generates most of the heat is the sun and the center of the Earth.
So are you saying?
That would be an ambiguity fallacy. As you're trying to read things into the text that are not there. It's just silly. That's clearly false.
Okay.
Again.
Okay, Brother Rumsey, what chapter and verse was that again?
Chapter 21, verse 32.
Okay, 21:32. All right, thank you, brother, for your.
Can I chime in on that?
Good, brother.
Yeah, so let me correct his. Again, this is misinformation he is giving. The sky does offer a type of protection to us. We know that the sky has many layers. One of those is everyone should know of. It's called the ozone layer. So let me go ahead and show you the different layers of the sky. We see that we are protected from meteors. We're protected from a lot of different rays. And so you have a thermosphere, mesosphere, stratosphere, troposphere. So again, the information which TJ is presenting to us is false and inaccurate. But one thing I did want to just kind of point out, all the scientific information which I presented, could it be extrapolated by just doing your own research or something like that? Yes, it could be extrapolated. But what you cannot do is continuously get it right over and over again on all of these scientific facts, from ants to bees to alcohol, triggering a scientific revolution, and 3 facts about seas. That you can't do. You can't do it all like that. There's no human explanation for getting all of the stuff right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, all those facts are just mundane facts that pretty much anybody could get right. There's nothing special about that any more than there's anything special about J.K. Rowling getting the facts right about King's Cross Station. None of that special.
Okay, I see another question in the chat. It says to both debaters, when the Quran makes reference to the bees eating fruit and the female in reference to the, hold on, let me see. I can barely see it because it's too small. When the Quran makes reference to the bees eating fruit and the gender of the female bee, is this not scientifically accurate? And if it is scientifically accurate, then do you agree that it confirms what the Quran has stated?
Was that for me or?
It's for both of you.
Probably for me, I guess.
Yeah, so these are all 4 scientifically correct statements. Bees, there was a female bee which leaves the hives and goes about its way, as the Quran mentioned. Honey is made from within the belly. Honey has a cure and healing in it. All this information is accurate. And of course, bees do eat fruit. We now know that from science. Just Google, do bees eat fruit? You'll get the answer on that. So the issue about what I want people to look at is, okay, let's say you're guessing at this stuff, and maybe you're just borrowing from other sources. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to have some errors, some truths, and some errors. See, if these 4 facts were mentioned in 10, different statements with some errors and some right stuff, all right, I can understand. Nothing miraculous there. But nobody can make 4 statements about bees without making an error. That's not, it's very, very improbable for you to pull off that stunt and then turn around and make 2 statements about the ants and all the other scientific information. That is the information. That is the argument which Tom was not able to answer tonight.
I literally answered it by just giving 4 myself. Like, it's mundane, super easy, literally nothing impressive about that. It's surprising you think it is impressive. But yeah, actually, those 4 facts, all of them except for the female one, which was actually false. It's just a misinterpretation. It just says young bees. But all of those are just listed in Pliny the Younger. So none of that's actually novel. Again, all that was already known by the Greeks.
TJ, can we fact check you real quick again? We did fact check you, and you failed that fact check. You said that the Quran.
No, I corrected your mistake, Nadir. I actually posted the links that actually prove that correct in the description of the video. They're actually there. Anyone can read them.
Go to this holy man or this smart man. He can help you and answer that question, which I can't. That was your response. So
Nadir, I corrected your mistake. I put the links of all of those things in the description.
Who's saying this? What link are you showing me? Can you show it to me? Let's fact check you right now.
Of our last conversation.
An email
in the description. I put all of the links of all the things you asked for in the description or the comments.
Is in the text of the Quran? You're saying that?
What?
So it says Youngbi? Really?
Yes. I actually sent you the video of the actual translation.
Videos and links of other people, but
of academics. Yes, those are called sources.
What verse is that?
This is chapter 69. It does not say Youngbi in any way.
It does.
Whether they're
69 what, brother?
Oh, I'm sorry. Surah chapter 16, verse 69.
1669. Okay.
But I don't want to go too much on this point because, as TJ said, he doesn't understand Arabic. He heard this from a video somewhere, and that's his reference. So let's just leave it at that. It's just one of the many of his fabrications he has presented to us tonight.
Yes, the academics who actually study Quran and Arabic and know it better than you do are somehow wrong because
we can look them up. What are the reference?
I sent it to you. You can find it again. I don't remember the actual link. It's youtube.com/something.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. All right. So there's another question in the chat. It says to Tom. It says, Tom, are you implying that when the Quran states that there's waves underneath waves within the ocean, and that this is inaccurate with science?
No, I'm saying everyone already knew that for thousands of years before the Quran. Like if you swim 20 feet under, you'll realize there's currents below the waves on top. So everyone knew that. And the
second part of his question was, can you verify and give references for people who you claim knew this information before the Quran was revealed?
Yeah, literally everyone. So again, the sea nomads knew it. And like just every form of humanity know this. You swim 20 feet down, you can feel out the currents. So like again, this is asking for a reference. The sky is blue. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's let me just say something just briefly on that, because you're actually totally incorrect. A human being does not have the capacity to go into the depths of the ocean to gauge that there's waves upon waves upon waves in the ocean.
I'm sorry, but I'm actually qualified in this field. Like the waves.
It's qualified.
No. I'm sorry, but
this is a scientific fact.
No. I'm sorry. I'm actually qualified in this field. So you can swim down far enough to feel the currents.
Something to you, Tom. You're actually making a huge blunder, because this is actually a scientific fact that modern science has confirmed. Okay. Now remember, this was revealed 1,450 years ago, where the Quran is stating that within the depths of the ocean, there's waves upon waves upon waves. No human being would have that knowledge. Okay.
Again, so the fact that you are ignorant of oceanography here. So wait. No. A vortex. Do you know what a vortex is?
I do know what a vortex is.
Where are they? What depth?
I don't know what.
Zero.
What depth?
They're at zero depth. You can have changes in the waves occur on the top and on the bottom. Stop. There are changes. I'm sorry, I just proved you wrong.
It in school somewhere.
No. So that means
the scientific fact there was 1,450 years ago.
Again, nothing you're saying here is relevant. So I prove you wrong.
Before modern science could prove.
I don't know why you're still talking. So vortexes exist at every depth.
And I'll talk as long as I want to on my show.
I still don't know why you think this is relevant. So
you've been the whole time. You've been very rude the whole time. I just haven't said anything. But on this point, you're making a mistake. So you're
okay. I already corrected you. So what depth are vortexes at?
It doesn't matter where the vortex.
If they're at zero, then I just proved you wrong.
Wave upon wave upon wave that was revealed 1,450 years ago. So you know about vortex because you've gone to school and studied about vortex.
Yes, and seamen knew about vortexes because they swam into them.
No study of this information.
No. Yes, they did. They've known about them for thousands of years. They're written in Norse mythology. This is very common.
No, it's not.
Yes, they are.
Prove it. Where's your reference?
I could, if you want me to do the research for you.
No reference.
You've been saying it's
I don't need to do it. Common facts.
That's
Yeah, if you want me to do
Uh,
research for you, pay me. I'm happy to. I'll prove it for you, but otherwise, I don't need to.
the debate.
So
Then you have to be able to back your point.
nope,
can't
I don't
just
have to. I don't have to at all. I can just. It's common knowledge.
Scarecrow that someone stitched together can
Common
walk.
knowledge. Like, oh
Everyone
gosh.
knows that a scarecrow can walk. Everyone knows there's a blue purple monkey, outside, in the backyard.
Yeah, everyone knows the sky is blue. Everyone knows the sea has waves. Like this is
I got a
super
question.
easy.
I got a question.
More sincere about the arguments here.
Okay,
so
Yeah, because your arguments are a joke, a complete joke.
I gotta get going. It's almost my grip time here. But let me ask you a question, TJ. Will you put this great debate victory of yours on your YouTube page?
Absolutely, you got crushed. This is going to be hilarious.
I really appreciate that, and we're going to make sure you get some more of these strong wins, okay, in the future.
Yep.
All right. Are we good? Let's wrap this up, guys.
All right. Okay, so thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Got a little heated at the end, but alhamdulillah. So listen, when you engage in debate and you don't bring sources for your information, then you have lost the debate. That's plain and simple. You can't just make statements without proving your sources. Anyone who's engaged in debate and has been doing this, you know that you have to prove your points with sources and references. You can't just say everyone knows. That's a blanket generalization, a blanket statement, and that totally disqualifies you from being able to answer the point that you're trying to address. If you can't address it with something better than everyone knows this, then you have failed. So this is a decisive victory for Brother Nadir. He did, and I'll claim it because, alhamdulillah, truth is made clear from falsehood. He brought references to his points. Now, whether someone wants to accept it or not, the fact of the matter is that the Quran does not disagree with science. So it actually agrees. It doesn't matter if Greek philosophers or people from Hindus or wherever this information come from. If it's consistent with a scientific fact, that means that indeed the Quran is scientifically accurate. Okay, it's not a book of science. Let's be reminded, not a book of science. It's a book of signs, but there's signs within the science. Okay, so once again, if you're coming and you don't have anything better to work with other than just everyone knows this and everyone knows that, no, they don't. And you're only saying what you know because you've gone to school with, in modern times and have studied what happens with the clouds and what happens in the oceans and so forth. 1,450 years ago, there weren't, universities everywhere where people were going to getting an education. And the human body cannot go into the depths of the ocean to study the movement of the waves. That's impossible. The body would be crushed. The human body would be crushed, right? That's a fact. Okay, so modern science is proving these points. In regards to the waters and the two barriers that do not mix, the Quran's not talking about islands and reefs and objects within the water. It's talking specifically about the two bodies of water that meet and they do not transgress the bounds of one another. Meaning these two bodies of water it's clearly stated in the Quran, matter of fact, that these two bodies of water meet, but they do not mix. Okay, talking about the fresh water and the salt water. Because the salt water is far more dense, the fresh water cannot mix with it. And if you study estuaries, you will see that evidence is clear, and only modern technology has been able to prove that. Otherwise, you get some salt water and some fresh water and pour it in a glass. You can't tell with the human eye. But the fact is, the salt water and the fresh water do not mix. Okay. So you can't just come along and say everyone knows that. Most people don't know these things. It's a fact. If someone asks, what are the weight of clouds, right? By example, if someone asks, what are the weight of clouds? Well, this is referenced in the Quran in numerous places where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the weight of the clouds, referring to the clouds as the heavy clouds, the weighty clouds, the heavy clouds. But when you look up and you see these clouds floating in the sky and birds are flying through them in 1,450 years ago, even in modern times, and you see airplanes flying through the clouds and birds and so forth, most people, you look up at it's weightless, floating up there. But no, in fact, Google, if you'd like to, Google the weight of clouds, and you will see that they weigh millions of tons. Millions of tons. Matter of fact, I believe the cumulus cloud weighs 1.2 or 1.4 million tons. Tons. Okay, so that's why the Quran is referring to these clouds as the heavy clouds. It looks like they're just floating in the air, like they'd be light, like just a balloon just floating up there. But in fact, they're heavy, and we know this because of modern science. Okay, so this is not just common knowledge that every Joe Blow, Tom, Dick, and Harry knows just because it's just as simple as he tried to make it. No, that's absurd. He was very condescending and patronizing, very rude. The whole discussion. Probably should have stepped in and said something to him, but because he was exposing himself, there was no need for me to say anything. So at the end, we'll do a summary at the end and let it be known that he was very rude the whole time, mocking Nadir, going to the whole Trump situation, blanket statement saying everybody knows this and everybody knows that. No, they don't. No, they don't. And you only know what you know because you've been to school in modern times. So let's be real with it. Let's put it on the line, TJump. Okay. So brother Nadir did very well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him for his efforts and his intentions. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us all in wisdom and knowledge and patience in dealing with people who are just rejecting the truth. The fact of the matter is, the point brought up, we're consistent with science, and it doesn't matter. Let's stress this point one more time. It doesn't matter if these points existed in previous writings. That doesn't matter, because we as Muslims believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our God, our creator, has sent 124,000 prophets and messengers to mankind throughout the history of the world, sent every group of people a messenger in their own tongue. So this information could have been spread amongst other peoples. And if it's consistent with what the Quran states, alhamdulillah. So it's not a problem. So if there's something in Greek medicine, if there's something in Hinduism, if there's something in the Bible that that's consistent with the Quran, we accept it. Why? Because the Quran is called al-Furqan, the criterion between truth and falsehood. So the Quran is taking the things that are correct and pointing out those things that are correct. And you can't just say, everybody knows that, and try to brush it off like it's nothing, and you have no source of information or references for all these people that you're claiming have all this vast knowledge. Prove it or remain silent. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Don't talk without knowledge. Okay, so so we'll leave it at that. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so by clicking on the link that I'm about to share in the chat. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you for your efforts and your intentions. We have the Quran initiative that we have going on, as well as the hygiene from the homeless kits that we're putting together, and also the water well campaign. We're trying to get water wells built in areas of the world where water is scarce. So you can donate to the PayPal link there, or I will also post the GoFundMe link if you'd like to donate to the Dawah Fund that way. And you may have to copy and paste the link into your browser, maybe. Or you can find these links. Matter of fact, you can find these links on Facebook as well as on YouTube on the information section of these of the show. And once again, may Allah bless you for your efforts and your attention. Listen, please hit subscribe, hit like, and hit share, and also be looking for the show tomorrow. We're going to have Brother Abu Yazid back on, and we're going to be discussing Christianity versus Islam, religion versus a way of life. Once again, special guest, Brother Abu Yazid, also known as C.L. Edwards, former Christian, and a co-host along with David Wood and Sam Shimon back in the day when he was still a Christian on the Trinity Network. I believe it was, if I remember correctly, he was a co-host with them on a show. And also, so that's tomorrow at at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Also on Friday, I will be engaged in a discussion with a Christian by the name of Alex Karimli on stories of the prophets, the Tanakh versus the Quran, and we'll discuss the different aspects of these stories of the prophets out of these two writings. And so be on the lookout for that. And so we'll leave it at that. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I do bear witness there's no God other than Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his final servant and the seal of all prophets. I do want to say assalamu alaikum to Brother Vincent Buckles and MI5 Dunya. Thank you for moderating. Brother Ramzi, it's good to see there in the chat as well. And everyone else, Nick L. and everyone out there. Alhamdulillah, if I've not mentioned your name, I'm still thinking about you. So thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Hit subscribe, like, and share. And may Allah make ease for each and every one of us in our tests and trials. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on each and every one of us on the day of judgment. And once again, in closing, I do bear witness there's no God other than Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his final servant and the seal of all prophets. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله